Welcome to the Big 12 Insiders, your Big 12 sports show. Here's your host, Brien Hanley.
Hey, everybody, what's going on? This is your man, Big B, Brien Hanley, along with Tim Fitzgerald. Welcome back to Big 12 Insiders. This is our game day preview on what is going on this weekend in the Big 12 Conference with these football games. 7 games on the slate this weekend, Fitz. There's some good, there's some bad, pretty intriguing matchups. We're going to go through those, but again, this is another weekend where some things are going to get figured out here in this conference, Fitz.
Oh, no. Overall, the slate isn't great, but the matchups are actually going to be telling. You know what I mean? There's really no battle of giants other than Cincinnati, Colorado. That'll sort something out on Saturday night. There's just some good matchups around here. Who's worse is a lot of these matchups, but also BYU with a very interesting road test from a program that is underachieved, but might see this as a statement that they can make about their season.
Absolutely. So we're going to break all these things down for you guys, man. But before we do, as always, remember to like, follow, subscribe, continue to leave those comments. I say it all the time. I love the back and forth. And again, hit the notification bell so you know exactly when Big 12 Insiders content comes out. So you guys have done a great job of supporting us and commenting and being involved. I love it. Thank you guys for helping us grow this channel. And we're just going to continue moving forward. So with having said all of that, let's get into these games. You mentioned it right off the bat. Look, first of all, there's no Friday game. It's been a minute since the Big 12 hasn't had a Friday game. And no 11 o'clock game. No early game. So we get to sleep in. Maybe, do a little drinking on Friday night, do a little hanging out. I will admit, though, before we even get started, it's Halloween party at the Hanley house this weekend, Fitz. So, there's a lot going on at the Hanley house on Saturday. I'm going to have these games on at a couple different rooms. People are going to be dressed up like crazy. I might be Fred Flintstone. I might not. I don't know. There's a possibility. Either way, I'm looking forward to it at Halloween style at the Hanley house this weekend.
So what Brien is saying, if he does any shorts, if he offers any content on Saturday, watch it. Yeah. It's going to be glorious. Fred Flintstone might be drunk talking Big 12 football. And I don't know about you folks. That's always been a dream of mine to have Fred Flintstone pipe up about college football. I'm weird.
Yeah, it's going to be fun, man. My wife, she does Halloween big. We've been having Halloween parties for 15 years, and we buy a couple of things every year, and she throws nothing away. Literally nothing away. So it's going to be fun, but let's get into some of these games, man. First things first, BYU at UCF. You mentioned it at the top here, an intriguing matchup. I think it's interesting, Fitz. Now, the game's at 2:30 on ESPN, but UCF is favored. The spread keeps going up. It was 1.5. Now it's 2.5. I don't know, man. And look, the over-under 55.5. I pretty much think that's a lock. I think that's going to happen. These two teams are going to score. But this UCF at -2 on game day, if you haven't seen that, by the way, make sure you check that out. I took UCF as my upset, or I was going to take it as my upset. I took it as my lock because I think UCF is going to win this football game. Now, I know the BYU fans are going to come for me. I get it. It's not a disrespect. I just think this is the game that they get tripped up on. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I believe it, Fitz.
Man, you're calling your shot. I kind of like it. Here's why those numbers are the way they are. Oklahoma State's running game that hasn't been very good this year ran right through the BYU defense. And UCF's strength, running the football.
Yes.
They're the best in the conference at it overall. And they've got quarterback issues at UCF that maybe the change has settled them down a little bit. But when you're not great or settled at quarterback, if you can line up and run the ball, it mitigates that problem pretty well for the most part. So I see why people are doing it. I just think BYU's got something about them. I think this game will be extremely close, but like last week, I think BYU will find a way to win this in the closing moments because they just got that thing about them. You know
They
what I
do.
mean, Brian? They
They
just get
do.
that knack about them to make the play. Some teams just get it. You can't explain it. You can't coach it. You can't create it. It just happens, and they got it.
Yeah, they do. There's no doubt about it. And it hasn't just been one time this year. It's been multiple times. So they seem like they have it. I just think the travel going across the country, the humidity, and like you mentioned, that running game, it could get away. But we'll see. Very intriguing matchup. Again, that line is just, it's weird to me. -2 UCF. I'm going to agree with Vegas on this one. So next up, we got Oklahoma State. The definition of struggling, even though they played better last week, they did, and probably should have won the football game. They gave it away, or BYU took it away from them. Let's say that. BYU took the game away from them last week. Going on the road to Baylor. Baylor, maybe riding high, Fitz, after their win last week, just demolishing Texas Tech. They might be riding high. We've talked about it all year. They haven't quit on Dave Aranda. They have an opportunity to still make a bowl game. Look, 2:30 ESPN Plus, Baylor -7 at home, over under 64.5. Again, another one that I think the 64.5, I think that's a lock. But Baylor -7. What do you like?
Baylor's playing better. I mean,
Yeah.
they've been getting close, and they finally got it done. And Oklahoma State looked better at BYU, as we mentioned previously, but that was because their running game was unstoppable. So apparently Vegas thinks these two teams are going to go up and down the field against each other. That might be true. This is one of 3 games on at 2:30.
Yeah.
And this is a pet peeve of mine. This one's on ESPN Plus. Nobody's going to be watching it other than diehards of the two institutions.
Correct.
It's going to be lost over there because you've got games on major carriers up against you. If you're going to play this on ESPN Plus, play this game at 1:00 or 11. I don't understand. You could choose your time, so you put your time up against other games. Why not play this at 11 a.m. or even noon? You can create whatever time you want and kind of carve out your own little nook in there with time. But I like Baylor in this. I think Oklahoma State had their moment where they put a new quarterback in and magic happened, and then magic broke and he got injured. So I'm going to go with the Bears big time in this one.
Yeah. I took as my upset, I took Oklahoma State on Big 12 Insiders game day. I'm going to stick with that, but I don't feel good about it. I'll just be honest. I don't feel good about it. They got injury issues, quarterback issues because their backup, who played pretty well, got hurt. And so now they're going back to the original starter. I don't like it, but I'll stick with it. I can't be a hypocrite. Or I could be a hypocrite, but I'm not going to be. I'm not going to be. So we'll see what happens. Next up, Texas Tech and TCU. Now, this is one of those games where I was talking about maybe they're not going to win the conference, but Tech is technically right in the thick of all of this.
Yep.
Right in the thick of it. They lost one game. TCU off a really good road win over Utah last week that I don't think anybody saw coming.
No.
But they did. This is 2:30 on Fox. TCU -6.5. Over under. Again, another game, 66.5. Just up and just doing wind sprints up and down the field on this one. Again, I think that 66.5 is a lot, Fitz. Both teams, not great defense. I'll say TCU keeps it rolling. Just for the 6.5 is tough for me because I think it's going to be a closer game than that. So I wouldn't take the 6.5. But so if I was a betting man, I wouldn't take that because I don't like it. But I do think TCU wins.
This is interesting. This is a matchup that I don't know if Big 12 fans would say, "Oh, that's a great game." You know what I mean? It's on Fox.
Yeah.
So apparently the folks at Fox think this is just going to turn into an old school Big 12 chaotic shootout, and they might be right because both of these teams are capable of scoring. Both of these teams are capable of giving up a lot of points. I do also like TCU, but I won't be surprised if Tech recovers after losing at home. This will be an interesting game. And for me, this is the best of the 2:30 games. I see why Fox picked it. It could be wildly entertaining. But someone will emerge from this feeling a little bit better. And if it's Tech, they're going to feel still connected to this overall race, even though they got some hurdles ahead.
Correct. Yeah. I like Tech in this football game, or not Tech, TCU in this game. Tech, I just don't. I think the anomalation or the I don't know what the word is for it. Basically, Tech's defense is really not very good, and I think what we saw a couple weeks back was the aberration. There's the word, the aberration, and not the norm. And I think TCU, they do score a lot of points. Last week, not include, because Utah, if they don't do anything else, their defense is still pretty good. But yeah, I'd like TCU in this one. A lot of points. Don't like the spread 6.5, but give me TCU to win the football game. Next up, I don't know, man. West Virginia at Arizona. These two teams are going the same direction, but the wrong direction. And it's two teams that you thought at the beginning of the year that could be ascending. That, hey, you know what? They had a good year last year. They're on the rise, both of these programs, and it has not worked out that way. Now, again, West Virginia, you look at their losses, they've only got those 4 teams only have a combined 1 loss. So it's not like they've lost games to a bunch of Rudy Poots out there. That's not the case. But they've still lost, and it's the way that they've lost. I mean, they've been manhandled a couple of times, and it just, I don't know. I'm not sure. They got injury issues, quarterback injury issues. If Garrett Green comes back and plays, who knows? But we'll see. Arizona, on the other hand, Fitz, yeah, it doesn't look good at Arizona. It is literally going downhill. They have not played well the last few weeks. Last week, just not even competitive. Just got physically who would have thought that you're getting physically manhandled by Colorado? It's not that Colorado can't play or isn't a good team or can't beat you, but you don't think of them as, you think of them more as, hey, a finesse team. Well, they were not finesse against Arizona. They were as physical as I've seen Colorado under Coach Prime, and they beat up Arizona on the road. Look, it's on FS1 at 6. 3.5 for Arizona is favored. I probably see that, but I'll go ahead. I'll take the under on this 53.5. I'm going under.
Well, the problem here is we don't know what Garrett Green's status is.
Correct.
And I was hoping to have some clarity on that, but why would they offer that? If Garrett Green plays and is healthy, I like West Virginia in this. I mean, I just think he's the kind of guy that's going to lead you to a victory against this type of team. He's not good enough to Shedeur Sanders you and get you over the hump against a really good team, but boy, he's a warrior and he'll get you up and down the field. West Virginia fans wanted the backup, and they got to see the backup last week, and it wasn't great. So if they get Green back, I think they'll be really good. If not, I'll pass. I'll pass on them and stick with Fafita and company at Arizona. Overall, I think, Arizona is the better team. We'll find out. It's Big 12 football. And as you mentioned, West Virginia's losses have been to unbeaten teams and Kansas State with 1 loss. So they've got quality losses, if you want to put it that way.
Right. Yeah. And that's the thing. I like West Virginia if Garrett Green plays, but even the backup, you get him a full week of practice and that guy knows he's going to be the starter. Maybe things are different. I don't know. I feel bad because these are 2 programs that you thought at the beginning of the season were going to be good, and it has not turned out to be that way. I still think that West Virginia has an opportunity to salvage something. I know their schedule isn't the easiest, but I think if they can pull this game off on the road, I think they can salvage some stuff here. So
Agreed.
Moving on, next game, Utah at Houston, 6 p.m., ESPN Plus. Utah is favored by 3.5. I don't know, man. Look, both of these offenses are rotten, just rotten to the core. 36.5 over under will tell you that. I'm going under because their defenses aren't horrible. Now, Houston's pass defense isn't great, but Utah doesn't throw the ball great. So that's where the difference comes in. So I would still take Utah just because I think they'll be able to create a couple of turnovers. But do not be surprised if Houston wins this football game, people. Don't be surprised at all. Willie Fritz look, they got embarrassed last week because their offense was so bad. I don't suspect that's going to happen 2 weeks in a row. He'll figure something out. But I'll go ahead and take Utah. The wheels can't fall that much off on Utah, can they, Fitz?
You lost one quarterback, and you've gone from, thinking you're going to play for a national championship to being one of the 2 worst teams in the conference. That doesn't add up to me.
No.
But I still think Utah's a better team here. The game's in Houston. So this game's on ESPN Plus, and let's have some fun with this. This is my request, Big B. It's my request. Both Houston and Utah have all red uniforms. Wear them both. Have this game be all red to add to the chaos. Quarterbacks won't know. You will be tackling your own players. It would just be a wonderful circus. Add a little value to the game between the 2 worst teams in the conference and make it something everyone will watch. ESPN Plus would get broken if 2 teams wearing almost identical uniforms played each other. I'm in. I hope you're in too, and maybe the coaches will be in.
Jeez Louise. Oh, spoiler alert. The loser of this game will be the bottom team in Big B's power rankings for next week. Just so, because it is a battle between 15 and 16. So just so we're clear, they will be the bottom team in this conference, the loser of this game. Moving on, next we got Kansas going to Kansas State, 7 p.m. on ESPN2. A high spread here, Fitz. I don't know. Kansas State favored by 10. I don't know if I like that. Matter of fact, I know I don't like that. I wouldn't bet that. 55.5 as far as the over-under on this one. Look, Kansas kind of got right if there is such a thing as far as a get-right game. They did that last week against Houston. They had a bye. Then they played Houston to maybe get some things turned around because we know they're ultra-talented at Kansas and they have a good coaching staff.
Yep.
But they've lost 15 years in a row to Kansas State, and this game is in Manhattan, Kansas. Sometimes, streaks are bound to come to an end. I don't believe this is one of those times. I think Kansas State is the better football team, and they're going to come. They're going to be the more, or let me say, not going to be, because it's college football. They should be the more physical team. They've shown that they're the more physical football team, and if they control the line of scrimmage on both sides, like I believe they will, I think Kansas State wins this. By 10, I don't know. But you know how this crazy college football is. They could probably win by 9, and you would say, oh, well, they dominated the football game. But I like Kansas State in this one.
There's a reason why they're favored by 10, and it's not necessarily how these 2 teams match up, and that's kind of the hang-up. We look at these 2 teams, and granted, KU's record isn't reflective of their talent level and their potential. So, to me, this feels like a 1-score game. But Kansas State has won 15 in a row, and the average winning margin in those 15 years, 25 points. The average winning margin. So you can see how Vegas is probably struggling with what to do with this spread. The game's in Manhattan. K-State's been historically dominant. KU's better. What do we do with that? I saw 9.5. It's funny. You change 9.5 to 10, and all of a sudden you're like, whoa, it's just that extra half point. I think this will be a really good game. It could absolutely bend in K-State's favor, and they could get away. But I think the more likely is that this is going to be a competitive game coming down to 1 possession.
Yeah, that's what I think so too. I still like Kansas State to win. I don't know. Kansas just doesn't seem to have you. We talked about the it factor that BYU has this year. I don't think Kansas has that. The number of games that they have lost at the end of a game, it's literally the exact opposite of what you were talking about with BYU. And I think that probably continues against Kansas State. And then, look, to me, the game of the week in the Big 12, and maybe one of the games of the week in the country, although it won't get advertised as that, Cincinnati going to Colorado at 9:15, maybe at 9:15. It might be 9:45. Who knows? On ESPN, the Stars will be out again. Huge implications for the Big 12 conference with this one, man. I've said it's a de facto elimination game. I don't even know if it's a de facto elimination game. I think it actually is based on the conference and the schedules that both of these teams have left. Yeah, I think it's an elimination game for them. So obviously there's still more football to be played. Cincinnati coming in. I don't think anybody, and I've said this, I don't think anybody thought this would have this kind of implication. The last game in October, that both of these teams would be fighting to be in the upper echelon and in the conversation of winning a Big 12 title. But that's literally what's at stake here, Fitz.
It's incredible. They're both 5-2. They're both right in the heat of this. And this game will decide who's the fourth team going down the stretch.
Correct.
Right now, it looks like Colorado, but the football gods give us a prime matchup to check this out with. Cincinnati still is, even if they lose, is somewhat in control of their own destiny. They'll need some help with Colorado losing some, but they still play Iowa State and Kansas State. So look, they're going into this game knowing full well all the other teams that we're in contention with for the second spot in the Big 12 championship game, if BYU runs the table, we play them.
Right.
We control our own destiny. And that's a powerful thing if you're the Bearcats.
Absolutely. Not only do they play them, those teams play each other.
Right.
So if Cincinnati, let's just say, even if they were to lose this game, they still get their chance at those two at Kansas State and Iowa State, and then those two play each other. So they're not technically out of it, but like you mentioned, they need some help from Colorado. Colorado coming off a win where, they didn't do a ton on offense, but they didn't have to. Their defense dominated the football game, 3 turnovers. There wasn't a whole lot of yards to get, Fitz, because they didn't have to go that far to go score touchdowns. They just kind of did their own thing, and they put it in a deep freeze in the second half. They just, we're not going to get anybody hurt. We're going to run the football. And they did. They didn't take a bunch of chances, didn't take a bunch of risks, and their defense literally just dominated Arizona in every facet of the football game. Look, it's -5 Colorado here. Over-under is 57.5. I'd be willing to take the over because I think there's going to be some points scored in this one. But having said that, I also like Colorado to win the game. They're at home. Look, I've talked to Chad Brindle, who covers the Bearcats for 24/7, and a couple of different people. We even talked about it on game day with Cody. Look, the game is going to be, like I said, at 10:15 Eastern, which is Cincinnati time. Maybe it's 10:45 based on what's going on during the day and the other football games. Okay, that's fine. But to me, it's not then. It's halftime, Fitz. You're coming out at halftime at 12:30 to go again play another half of football. That's difficult. That's difficult, man. I mean, look, I'm not saying that college kids aren't up till 12:30 because they are, but they're not playing football that late. They're not having car crashes repeatedly that late at night. And that's what a football game is. So maybe that catches up to them. I don't know. I just still like Colorado in this football game.
I do too. Look, we just recently saw the environment in Boulder. It's amazing.
It is. They've
got people fully locked in on the Buffaloes. Although Ralphie kind of took the second half off. I was disappointed with that second half run. They kind of he just decided to stroll, and then they had to push him into his trailer. Come on, Ralphie, you need to be better than that. But I like Colorado in this game too. But as I said, this is a huge game for Cincinnati. But let's stop for a second and realize Colorado only has the one conference loss.
Yeah.
If they can get some losses for Iowa State and another one for K-State, they're right there because, as you know, Big B, next up, and it's not next week, they get an off week here, is Texas Tech. At Texas Tech. Then they have Utah, Kansas, and Oklahoma State.
It's manageable.
It's really manageable.
It's manageable.
Colorado wins this. They're solidly in the conversation, not just for the Big 12 title game, but a 10-2 Colorado. We've said this on other shows. If they start climbing into the rankings and moving up, is in the conversation for an at-large bid. Absolutely. They have to get to the top 15, but it's Colorado. And if they start another win, they got 5 opportunities to move up. leapfrog up to the rankings. And I tell you what, if 10-2 Colorado's on the board and there's some question about who to take, ESPN's going to say, Coach Prime.
Absolutely.
Take it.
Absolutely. You can
Our
take
ratings.
it to the bank. You can take it to the bank. They're going to do that. And if they make it to the Big 12 title game, it's a lock. I can tell you that right now. Now, again, they're going to need some help to get there. But you put Colorado in the Big 12 title game at 10-2, and even if they lose, I don't care if they lose or not, they will be in the college football playoff. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about that, because while we all think it's about competition, enough of you guys that are on here that pay attention, you guys understand this has always, and I mean always, been about money. Never any doubt about that. Oh, and it didn't just start with NIL or transfer portal either. It's been about money since the 50s. Okay. Let's just so we're clear. It's always been about money, not amateurism or any of that. It's always been about money. That's why they have so many seats for people to go watch the football game. That's why. No other reason than for that.
The one curveball here is they have to be in that large. They have to be, I think it's top 15 team. So they have to accomplish that.
Yeah, that's true.
But
we've seen them manipulate the polls, Fitz.
What's that?
We've seen them manipulate the polls.
You got it.
The rankings.
You got it. If ESPN really wants them, it'll be a miracle. They'll move up after a loss.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's the way this game has been played. It's rarely been played in the favor of the Big 12, but this might be. Because I got to admit it. Think about all the other teams that might be in the college football playoff. Even if it's Boise State.
Yeah.
You're not going to watch Colorado against one of those teams?
Correct.
Hell yes, you're going to watch the circus when it comes to town. The ticket's going to be cheap, and you're going to sit in front of your TV and say, let's watch this. That's exactly all ESPN wants. They paid a lot of money, and they want a lot of ratings for a lot of advertisers to pay a lot of bucks.
Gotcha.
And there's a lot of schools out there that don't bring that to the table nearly as well as Colorado, including some schools that might have the bigger name right now. Colorado brings viewers.
They do. So, we talked about at the top of this, food for the weekend. Fitz, Look, I'm sorry. I'm in holiday party mode.
Right.
So meatballs, sausage, what my wife brings, she gets wings. So I'll be dabbling into all that. She won't let me touch any of it, and unfortunately, until the party starts, which is wild to me. So what am I supposed to do all day watching football? But here's the thing. I probably won't eat much because I'm going to need to eat something, because I'm telling everybody I'm going to have an alcoholic beverage or 10 at this Halloween party. So I need to have some food to soak all that stuff up. But I know that you're going to the Kansas State KU game. Before that, though, you'll be at home. Well, what's on Fitz's plate this weekend?
Well, I'm going to stick with the holiday theme.
Oh, okay.
There's only two types of homeowners at this time of year. Well, there's three, but the two most significant are ones that either turn off the lights and hide inside,
right,
or they hand out full-size candy bars, or even king-sized candy bars.
Yeah.
I say the food of the week is a king-size Snickers.
Ooh. Okay.
Just eat a bunch of those. Call it good. Be a kid for a day. Dress up as Fred Flintstone. Yeah. Hell, you can dress up as Wilma. I'm not going to judge you, fellas. Have fun on this weekend. I know the actual holiday is next week, but if you can have candy and college football, yeah, I'm in. And for the record, I am a turn off the lights and hide inside guy, because let me just say this. Do I look like a guy that wants to share his candy, even with a little kid? Hell no. That's my candy bar. My wife bought candy for Halloween. It's gone.
See?
It's gone. I made sure I taste tested it, and it was good. It was good enough for the kids, but now there is none.
You have to taste it in case you do hand any out. You have to make sure it's not poisonous.
I know.
You got to make sure. That was my dad's claim to fame. Oh, I got to make sure. You remember, you got to make sure there's no poison, or make sure there's no razor blades in there. I'm like, who's putting a razor blade in a sealed Snickers bar? Like, how does that work? Well, you don't know. And I'm like, this man is just stealing my candy is basically what this is coming down to.
That's
just
good.
Stealing my candy, and he didn't have to go out. He didn't have to let me do all the work, and he stole my candy. Just unbelievable, people.
It's a rough life you went through. I know. It's rough. It's rough. And you know, back in my day, they were all worried about putting razor blades in apples.
Yes, and apples.
What? Who would trust anyone handing out freaking apples at Halloween? I don't
apple.
even want to go to that house.
No. And as a kid, if I got an apple, I would throw that thing on the street and just keep on trucking.
Why don't you give the kids a lovely mixed salad? I mean, what are we doing here?
Yeah. Well, man, look, it's going to be a good weekend again in the Big 12. Like I said, maybe not a ton of marquee matchups, but good matchups, you know, that can decide some stuff moving forward with this conference. So, look, everybody out there, I don't know what you're doing on Saturday. If you're watching the games, if you do happen to go out, make sure you take care of yourself, man. It's going to be a fun weekend for everybody. I appreciate everybody showing up like you guys always have, man. You've been taking care of us, man. We appreciate it and the support that we've gotten. So want to thank you guys for all of that. Again, make sure you like, follow, subscribe, continue to leave those comments, hit the notification bell. Until then, we will see you next week. You guys have a good one.
Thank you for watching the Big 12 Insiders, your Big 12 sports show. This has been a Spirit Street production.